I'd like to call the July meeting of Cherokee Village City Council to order. Please join with me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Let us have a moment of silent prayer and also observe a moment of silence for two of our colleagues who have lost family members, Mr. Martin and Mr. Christophe. Amen. Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Rowland. Here. Heffley.
Here.
Ishmael.
Here.
Thompson.
Here.
Smith.
Here.
Martin.
Here.
Quorum established.
Thank you. Next item is approval of tonight's agenda. Council members, for your information, item number 1 under new business will not be on the agenda. That matter has been taken care of. Entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved. Second.
Motion by Mr. Martin, second by Mr. Smith, to approve tonight's agenda as amended. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Agenda is approved. Any comments on the agenda items from any citizen in the audience? Okay, seeing or hearing none. Next would be approval of the minutes from the June meeting.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the minutes as submitted.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Martin, second by Mr. Thompson to approve the minutes as submitted and to be filed for audit. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion passed. Minutes will so be approved and filed. Clerk, do we have any correspondence?
No correspondence.
Thank you. Next is the financial report.
Mr. Mayor, if I could, I've got one question here on the cash and bank for the street department at NBC. We showed a negative 5,616. There's an asterisk to note that we should have some kind of notation here, and I'm not seeing that. Is there a reason why we're in a negative balance for that account?
On the street department. What, you know what, is that on in the budget page you're looking at?
It's in our first page of the budget.
Okay, let me back that then.
Just saw it due to a payroll check cross difference of $2,367,000, but there's no other. It's on the bottom of the page. Total fund balances.
Because I don't have an answer to your question on that one.
Okay.
We're not in the negative. Yes, Mr. Trumpet.
I think, in talking about this, it's where, when we have to deposit the payroll funds, basically the checks passed in the mail. It was sent to the bank, but the payroll was also being processed before the checks were sent out.
Good. We weren't charged anything for this one.
No, it doesn't, the bank doesn't show that we're in a negative.
Okay, just.
Ours does. It
Okay.
just,
Thank you.
Any other questions on the financial report?
I make a motion that we accept the financial report.
Second.
I have a motion by Mr. Martin, second by Mr. Smith, to approve the financial report for June, to subsequently be filed for audit. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Financial report will be so filed. Mayor's report. I have no report for this month, except hoping that the forecast holds true for the latter part of next week and we get some much needed rain. Next would be the department reports. I do know that the animals at our animal control facility are being taken care of in this heat. And tough on the people working there and tough on the animals, but everybody seems to be doing okay.
Mr. Mayor, I do have not really a question, but a confirmation from our fire department. Cal, could you give us some information on some funds coming in and possibly what we would be using those for?
Yeah, I'm sorry, Mr. Mayor. Before we hear from the fire chief, can we go ahead and vote to accept the animal control, community service, and district court reports?
I'm sorry. Yeah,
Okay, I assume that's a motion then?
Yes,
I'll second
please.
it.
Okay, motion Mr. Thompson, second by Mr. Martin, accept animal control community service and district court reports. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion passes, reports to be so filed. Okay, chief.
At our last county quorum court meeting, the Sharp County Quorum Court authorized disbursement of ARP funds to all the fire departments in Sharp County. All the departments that are based in Sharp County will be receiving $60,000 each. They did have some requirements here. It's basically modeled after our Act 833, so the expenditures will be approved. Using those same rules, we'll have to account for it in a separate account, turn invoices into the county, and keep a separate bank account for that. Currently, we're looking at updating some of our equipment that is probably in excess of 30 years old. One of the things, and I spoke to the mayor about this, is extrication tools. Advancements in technology are a lot higher now than they were 30 years ago. And especially with lower manpower, it's going to be a big deal. Used to, we had to have a separate hydraulic pump connected by hoses to a tool, and you were limited how far you could travel. Now they make these things cordless. So we could grab a tool and travel however far we need to. The other thing is we're looking at nozzles, hose, things of that nature. Most of our stuff is 30 years. Some of our hose, I took all the 74 model hose up to 1986 out of service. We still have enough to operate fine, but that's how old a lot of our hose is being built. We're going to try to start upgrading that just a little bit at a time. So that's what we're looking at.
Question.
Yes, sir.
What happened with the radios that they were talking about the meeting before? Are we still going to be required as the fire department to finance the radios ourselves, or are they going to be distributed them to everybody?
No, they're going to upgrade all the infrastructure on the radio system where everything's capable They're not looking at making that changeover yet. A lot of the departments, like we gradually have purchased radios to be digital capable. I probably don't really like that many to be capable.
But that's a year down the road or 2 years down the road?
Unknown. They're gonna have to accept somebody's bid to upgrade all the equipment, get that done. There's no federal requirement yet to go digital, so,
Thank you.
yep.
Thank you, Cal.
Did he mention that those extrication tools would be battery powered?
He did, and a lot lighter to
That'll
carry.
definitely save some time if they have to be put into service.
I would make a motion to accept the fire department report.
Second?
Motion, Mr. Thompson, second by Mr. Martin, to accept the fire department report. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Report shall be so filed. Next, you have the P&Z code enforcement report.
Just wondering if Charlie would be available to expound a little bit on the residential remodels. Pretty significant step up over the previous year.
Yeah, I think that.
Come up to the podium, Mr. Akers.
I think the remodels, I believe, were more booked from the last storm we had. So I think the classification might need to be changed a little bit. So I think that's where the discrepancy is.
Yeah, straight down the middle of the storm or something?
Yeah, yes, sir. So we'll take care of that tomorrow.
Then my other question was, we've had a lot of contractors in the community subsequent to the hailstorm. Have you had any significant issues with some of the contractors as far as not getting business permits or having other complaints from citizens as to quality of work, or do you think things are generally running pretty smooth?
Business license, good. As far as quality of work, one in particular, I probably shouldn't say here in open forum here, but very displeased. There's multiple complaints that's been filed and given to a legal grade. Or if not yet, it'll be not yet, but it will be given to him. And we're in the process of pulling his business license, but as we know, there's a process to it that we have to follow, and we are doing that, but it takes a little time. Otherwise, I check a lot of roofs during the week, so, I mean, I think all in all, they're doing good. I'll stay ahead.
Thank you.
Anything else?
Thank you, Charlie.
Thank you.
So again, I'd make a motion to accept the P&Z department report.
Motion by Mr. Thompson, second by Mr. Martin, accept the P&Z report. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Report shall be so filed. Next will be your street committee report.
With the police.
Please.
Oh, I'm sorry. I skipped that, didn't I? Police department report.
I motion we accept.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Smith, second Mr. Heffley to accept the police department report. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion passes. That report shall be filed. I should add that we still have an officer who is unable to perform duty due to an injury that suffered. But have we got another week on that, Chief?
He has another week, and then he has to go back and be reassessed from there.
In the interim, our sergeant has been sort of doing double duty. He's been working the night shift along with another officer, and then also coming when he has the time coming in during the day. So we're we're getting coverage. And appreciate that extra effort on the department's report. Okay, street department report. Any questions of the street department supervisor?
Motion we accept.
Second?
Who made that motion? Eddie? That's okay. Motion by Mr. Ishmael, second by Mr. Martin to accept the street department report. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Report should be placed on file. Street department workers are out there and have been out there in the heat. We've had a couple that got a little bit dehydrated, but they cooled down and got back to work. But it's, any of you that are going outside to do anything know what I'm talking about in terms of how tough it is out there. Next are the other reports. Those are available to be read. Any questions? Mr. Smith, you have anything you want to, well, you had your meeting canceled, so there's nothing on A&D.
Yeah, that's not.
If there are no questions or comments on that section, well, those reports will be placed on the file. We'll move on to old business. Item 1, Mr. Thompson requested to be on the agenda, revisit approval for accepting credit cards. Mr. Thompson.
Yes, previously, I think you had stated that, oh, I'm sorry.
I thought you stated it was taken care of.
Was that the old business number 1 or new business number 1 that was taken care of, Mr. Mayor?
New business.
New
was
business.
taken care of.
New business.
New business, okay.
Oh,
So under old business, and I originally voted for pursuing the card system, particularly as it was presented, as it was going to assist the court system. My understanding in following up with the court system is that they have a process in place and they have the ability to take payments here in court. And so I think the card system would not necessarily be a resolution of of the issues within the court system. Further, with the cost involved and the low usage, I just think it's an expenditure at this time that perhaps, we could, while it has some merits, I think upon further review, I think given the current financial situation that we have, I think there are other priorities within the community that we can address and needs of the community, and not to install the card system at this time. And so until we have a greater usage consideration for it, since the court system is really not going to utilize that, because it would involve having the city be reimbursed and so forth, so pretty complicated in that respect, and it wouldn't improve that system. I would like to entertain a motion to rescind that approval for pursuing the credit card readers, if you will, what we voted previously. I had voted originally for that, and so normally we would have a 180-day rule to reconsider the same issue, but I think at this point in time we need to table that until we can do some additional studies and we have a further proven need within the community to bring those card readers forward.
Mr. Thompson, I believe, since that is a resolution, it doesn't hold the weight that you're giving it, and you can just make the motion and I'll second.
I'd like to have some conversation on this.
That would be after it's accepted on the floor.
Excuse me, is your motion to table it indefinitely or table it for a specified period of time?
I think at this point my motion is to rescind the original vote until such time as it can be proven to council that it's going to be cost effective within the city. When you take away the court issue, then the usage would be very limited. And so the costs, as my understanding of the costs, those would be difficult to overcome. And so, again, the cost benefit at this point in time, I don't think is justified. So my motion would be to rescind the previous approval for the card system until it's brought forward again.
Okay, I think I understand. You want to rescind the action taken by the city council previously.
Yes, sir.
And I second that.
And second by Mr. Martin. Okay, now we'll open for discussion.
In our original discussion on this, it was decided with the council that there would be no additional cost to the city as it came up, and that was what was approved. I am working with the AMP at this point, and we are trying to push this through on their line item. So it would be something, if there were cost involved in this, it would be absorbed by AMP. I'm working with committees to make this happen, where there will be no additional cost to the city. The inroad here is we need electric chargers in the city of Cherokee Village. To get those electric chargers, we must accept credit cards for those chargers to work. That's the only way it's going to happen. There are funds out there that are available for those chargers to come to the city, but we have to be set up to take those chargers when they do come in. And I would like the opportunity to pursue this further, making no obligation for the city council, but I would like to continue to pursue this. I do believe that it's something that the city is going to need, especially by 2024 when we have a lot of people coming to the city.
And I can appreciate, the comments as far as electric vehicle chargers, but however, most individuals, if they're going to have their personal car on a charger, they're going to want to do so at their own personal residence where they can secure their own vehicle. Leaving a car for a rapid charger for 3 hours in the City Hall parking lot or for a overnight charge, I would never leave my vehicle unattended, in a public parking lot. Now, if, where you're seeing these chargers installed in major metro areas is going to be like at a mall or a grocery store, where somebody is going in for a purpose to conduct other business for an extended period of time, and therefore the charger's there, or a place of business where they're going to do 8 or 10 hours of work and the charger is there. But it's not just the cost of the charger. Now you're talking about they've got to be installed according to code, which means we're going to be tearing up our parking lot out here to put the electrical underground. And so again, if we push back on the grant situation for example, Mrs. Page, Karen Page brought forward very good ideas about bike trails. And, there were matching grants. But we determined at the time that we couldn't afford to even do the matching grants. And my understanding of the chargers is that the grants that are available are matching grants. And so our financial situation as a city has declined since we put Ms. Page back on the trail of finding additional full grants for her trails. And I don't think this is any different. If the grant money is determined that it's there, then let's get the particulars on it. But at this point, I don't think we should have just a blanket approval for something that really at this point doesn't really have application. And again, I question whether a private citizen would leave their vehicle in our city hall parking lot unless you had somebody that was an employee in the city and was going to put in a full day's work. But I don't think it's, in my mind, it's not justifiable to take monies that have been provided by the entire community for one or two people that happen to be in City Hall for an extended period of time. So from that standpoint, I think you're going to have a lot more application of home chargers, because you have to have a 220, or I know enough about electricity to be dangerous, but you have to have a 60 to 75 amp circuit. You have to have 220 to that. There are very few homes that have that.
No,
But
most homes do have to do.
Yeah, I mean, you can have a 220 circuit in there, but again, I don't think at this point it would be prudent to expend city dollars in that effort until we actually have a demand here and we have more meaningful grants that are available from the federal government. Given where we're going with rising interest rates and servicing the debt at the federal level, the discretionary spending is going to be brought into question rather dramatically over the next 2 to 5 years. And so I don't see a 100% grant. I think even the possibility of a 50% grant is a stretch. So I just, at this point in time, I don't think it's appropriate to have that endeavor approved when we really don't have a need. And especially when I look over at department heads and we're trying to fund equipment, I just think it's something that perhaps we'll have a better day later. I think it's more of a timing issue right now, Rob, than anything else. Not that I disagree with your issue, I just think at this point we're a little ahead of ourselves, being that the court is not going to participate in that system.
Any other comments? We have a motion on the floor. I would call for a vote. All in favor of, pardon?
Roll call, please. Roll call, please.
Okay. Call the roll, Ms. Trumpy.
Heffley,
Nay. No to that.
Ishmael,
Yes.
Thompson,
Yes.
Smith,
No.
Martin,
Yes.
Rowland,
Yes.
4 yeses and 3 noes.
Mayor, you need 5 votes to pass it, so you can either vote to pass it or not vote. You have to have 5 votes to pass it.
I know. So I need to vote?
You can
To
vote if you
pass
want to.
it,
You can only
or
vote
don't
yes.
say anything if you don't want it.
Because we were absent one council member and we have another vacancy to fill, so I'd prefer not to cast a ballot at this time. I think, but in the interim, I would suggest, Mr. Smith, whoever you're working with, and maybe get some hard documentation, come back
We've got a lot of homework to do. I understand that, Mr. Mayor.
a long ways down the road. Okay, next item on our old business is interviewing council candidates for vacant position. Well, we only had one candidate for that position, Mr. Tatum. Would you come up to the podium, please? Appreciate you submitting your application. We checked the signatures and verified that everything was okay there. What's going to happen now is I'm going to ask you a series of 6 questions for you to answer. And then if any of the council members have a question, they may ask. And then we will go into executive session and then come back out and vote on your candidacy. Okay. My first question, these aren't difficult. How long have you lived in Cherokee Village?
I think we're working on 7 years.
Okay. What prompted you to move to Cherokee Village?
Well, we lived in Paragould, it was a high crime rate, and I really enjoyed being up here in the hills, and we got land out at Mammoth that I spent a lot of time in, and so we just bought a house here.
Okay. My third question, have you previously served in an elected capacity or worked with any type of governing group?
No.
Okay. And number 4, why do you want to be a member of City Council?
You know, one of the reasons I wanted to get in is I work in EMS, and I talk to our firemen constantly. And we have some of the best firemen in all the fire departments around here. We really do. I don't care rain, snow, sleet, shine. Last year when we had the ice storm, they were out in it. And all I hear from them is they like their job, but they're handicapped by the whole lawsuit, the budget cuts. And I hate seeing it happen. And I'm hoping that I can bring something, since I'm in the OEM side of thing in the EMS, maybe I can bring some insight to that and help these guys out a little bit.
Okay. Question 5, what do you perceive are the responsibilities of a city council member?
Well, pass legislation, that's part of it. Try to grow the community, that's another one. And something I'd like to help with. I think that's something we really got to work on, is growing this community.
And my last question is, do you believe partisan politics have a role in municipal government?
No, well, you gotta be open-minded. That's just all there is to it. You know, there's too much partisan politics going on right now, and that's a lot of what's wrong with things in the country. I didn't want to get political on it, but that's the only way I can go with it. There's too much partisan politics right now.
Okay. Anybody have any questions they'd ask Mr. Tatum?
I have one.
Go ahead.
And I appreciate you taking the time to detail what you've done over the last couple of years. Could you kind of walk us through your career as far as your background?
I'm a disabled veteran. I retired in 2010. I stayed at home for a long time, and then I decided I have a lot more to offer the community. So I volunteered for Deputy OEM for Fulton County, which is unpaid at this time. The OEM director in Quorum Court asked me about 6 months ago to build a search and rescue team for Fulton County, consisting of firefighters and EMS, which I've done. And I also work for Spring River part-time, and a lot of that money goes to pay for me to do these part-time jobs, these volunteer jobs.
So you were a veteran up to 2010?
I wasn't in the whole time. I got blown up with a landmine back in '91, and I worked for years, and I got to where I couldn't work no more, and I finally had to just step aside.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Mr. Tatum? You may have a seat. I'll entertain a motion for us to go into executive session.
I don't think we should go into executive session because we only have one gentleman applying for the position. I'll make a motion that we accept him and put him in his seat.
I'm fine with that. I'll take the second.
Okay, motion by Mr. Martin, second by Mr. Smith to accept Mr. Tatum's candidacy. We probably need a roll call vote. Clerk.
Martin,
Yes.
Rowland,
Yes.
Yes.
Ishmael,
Yes.
Thompson,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
motion carried.
Congratulations, and welcome aboard. I'll see you after the meeting a little bit and we'll set up an appointment. Okay, next item is new business. Item number 1 is removed from the agenda. Item number 2, ordinance payment of treasurer position during vacancy in order to comply with the audit. Clerk, would you please read the ordinance?
Sir, the procedure is you have a motion to put it on the floor and a second to...
Not necessarily, I don't
Yes,
think.
sir, that is the procedure we are following. That is the procedure that I accepted at the beginning of the year. That's the procedure I'm looking for. If you cannot do that, then I don't believe it should be read.
I'll ask the opinion of the attorney.
And I've read the law, so...
Well, it's the same thing. So we move to put it on the agenda and we put it to be read, and somebody seconds it and we read it.
So I'd like you to have your person that you have to make the motion and your second for this particular...
I motion we present this resolution.
I second.
I'm looking for a second.
I'll second.
Okay.
Okay, motion by Mr. Smith, second by Mr. Thompson to present this ordinance for reading. Clerk, would you please read, well, let's vote on the motion, I'm sorry. Roll call vote, please.
Ishmael,
Yes.
Thompson,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Martin,
Yes.
Rowland,
Yes.
Heffley,
Yes.
motion carried.
Okay, now, would you please read the ordinance?
Ordinance number 2022, an ordinance providing for the clerk of the city to receive compensation for performing the services of treasurer after the office of clerk and treasurer were separated. Repealing the ordinance in conflict, declaring an emergency, and for other purposes. Whereas state law prohibits an elected city official from receiving compensation in excess of the compensation allowed for the elected position. And whereas the city has an ordinance 2016-03 separated the offices of the city clerk and treasurer, providing for an elected clerk and an appointed treasurer. And whereas for the years 2020 and 2021, the clerk performed the task of the treasurer and the office of the clerk, and was paid a salary for the office of the clerk and an hourly wage for the task of the treasurer. And whereas Arkansas Code 14-42-107B1 requires the city council to enact an ordinance authorizing and prescribing the extent of the authority of the city council members, officials, and municipality employees to conduct business with the city. Now, therefore, be it ordained by the city council of the city of Cherokee Village, Arkansas, that Section 1, the city council of the city of Cherokee Village, Arkansas, hereby authorized retroactively that the clerk of the city may perform the task of the city treasurer and receive compensation for the work in addition to the compensation received for performing the work of the office of the city clerk during the time the clerk performed work in each capacity. Section 2. All ordinances and part of ordinance which in consistence with the provisions of this ordinance are hereby repealed to the extent of such inconsistencies. Emergency clause. It being necessary for the continued orderly administration of the city of the Cherokee Village and to comply with requirements of the legislative audit to enact an ordinance authorizing dual pay received by the clerk for performing the task of the treasurer in addition to performing the duties of the city clerk. Such ordinance being necessary for the preservation preservation of the health, welfare, and safety of the citizens of the city. The City Council of the City of Cherokee Village, Arkansas recognizes and declares an emergency to exist, and this ordinance being necessary for the preservation of the public peace, health, comfort, convenience, moral safety, and welfare of the City of Cherokee Village, Arkansas, shall be in full force and in fact from the date of its adoption.
Thank you. Any questions?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
What are the specific dates that this entails, and can we see the original thing from the Office of, sorry, haven't I seen a moment? Office
Of the audit?
thank you. Can we see whatever piece of paper was given to whoever about this mishap that happened? Because as I am trying to figure it out, I'm assuming it happened before our current clerk was here, correct?
Right.
And somebody made a decision without going in front of the council. Is that also what happened?
We were under the understanding that when the budget was approved and those changes were made, that was acceptable. And we didn't discover this until this current audit was made, and the auditor said we had to have an ordinance in place. And we tried to...
And hasn't something like this happened in the past 8 years also? And I believe
Not that I
was
recall.
your wife?
Not that I remember.
Yeah, because I'm under the impression we did the same thing for her so that she could get a salary because, I'll have to look at the ordinance, it should be here, so that she could get a salary for answering the phones and stuff. There is an ordinance in there, and I thought that's the same thing that happened with that particular one. I could be wrong. So, basically, the city council's correcting the mistake that was made in 2021.
Right.
Okay.
That,
And
in
the
order,
monies have already been dispersed.
yeah, in order to comply with the audit, so.
Okay. Can we do something in the future, or design something as a rule for the city council for that particular department if something happens again? Because if they are split and we do have somebody quit or somebody gets sick and can't do it, we should have some sort of policy in place. Could that be done after this ordinance is approved?
I'm
There
not
should
sure
be a
we
policy
need,
for-
I'm not sure we need it. I think we got an understanding now that if this arises again, that,
You have an understanding,
Yeah.
correct, but if we put it in writing someplace and anybody after you has the same understanding, that's why I would like something written up and done for whatever positions this might happen to. It seems like this will be the only one, clerk and treasurer. But we've had some other hiccups happen in the last year with department heads taking over 2 departments and some discussion. So maybe it would be nice, after this gets corrected, that we have something worked on how to cover that and what the procedure is going to be for it. So when something happens again, which it probably will, we will already have it in place.
I'll put that on the to-do list.
I appreciate that. I'll make a motion that we accept this. Can I make it so for all 3 readings at the same time?
Yeah, you have to,
I'd like to waive the rules and,
Just bring it up to final passage.
I'd like to waive the rules and bring up this ordinance for final passage.
I second.
Motion by Mr. Martin, second by Mr. Smith to suspend the rules in order to adopt this ordinance. Roll call vote on that motion.
Heffley,
Yes.
Ishmael,
Yes.
Thompson,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Martin,
Yes,
Rowland.
Yes.
I'd like to make a motion that we accept the emergency clause.
now you gotta pass the ordinance.
Got to pass the ordinance first.
That was getting,
Okay, sorry. Do I have to make another one?
okay, you gotta make a motion.
I make a motion that we pass the ordinance.
Second that one.
Motion by Mr. Martin, second Mr. Heffley. Motion to adopt the ordinance. Roll call vote, please.
Rowland,
Yes.
Heffley,
Yes.
Ishmael,
Yes.
Thompson,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Martin.
Yes.
Motion passed.
Now I would like to make the motion to pass the emergency clause.
Motion by Mr. Martin, second by Mr. Heffley to approve the emergency clause on this ordinance. Roll call vote again, please.
Martin,
Yes.
Rowland,
Yes.
Heffley,
Yes.
Ishmael,
Yes.
Thompson,
Yes.
Smith.
Yes.
Motion passed.
Thank you. And the auditor will be so notified. Next item of new business is comments from Mr. Robert Brown. Mr. Brown, would you come to the podium, please? You might need to pull that microphone close to you.
First, I'd like to thank you for allowing me to speak tonight, Mr. Mayor and council members. What my concerns are in Cherokee Village is peace and dignity. Now, what is peace and dignity? Dignity is the quality of life that we could share, that we're responsible to each other with. Also, peace. That's a state of security or order within the community. We all share that. Well, we have some problems in Cherokee Village that you all may not be aware of. We have ordinances that allow ATVs in the village. Now, supposedly, those ATVs are to be from point A to point B at specific times of day, being daylight. Well, that's not what's going on. Those ATVs are racing, joyriding, 24/7. Now, some are members of our community, some are not. Some are rentals for the weekend, or the RBOs, whatever they call them, rental by owner. So, my concern, somebody's going to be hurt, and hurt badly, and then they'll be forced to act. And there may be lawsuits and whatever. Now, the people that rent property to folks coming for the weekend, a day, a month, whatever, those owners of those homes should be required to let the renters know what the laws are with respect to ATVs, excuse me. But anyway, that's one issue. The next issue has to do again with noise in the village. Now, we have homes that are rented out for the weekend or the night, whatever, and folks come into town and spend their money. That's great. But we have a noise ordinance that says 10 o'clock, it must calm down, cease. That's not happening. You know, I had a poor neighbor, his wife, elderly lady, her last weekend on this earth, she had to listen to boom, ba boom, ba boom, ba boom, day and night. Is that fair? Is that peace and dignity? No. But again, the folks that rent those homes should make it aware to those folks what the heck the law and the rules are. That's a concern. The next concern I have is, everybody's gonna love this one. Chickens in Cherokee Village. Why do we need chickens in Cherokee Village? We don't. Folks say eggs are free. Well, if you ever own chickens, you'll know that eggs aren't free. And what does a chicken bring to the neighborhood, to the neighbor? What does that chicken bring to the neighbor? Well, one is, it's not a pleasant smell. Two, how many varmints from nature out here are going to try to get to those chickens, to the feed, to the eggs. And what is that going to do to the neighborhood? Also, who's selling the chicken feed? Is this what this is all about? Someone's got a bunch of chicken feed and they want to make sure there's a place to sell it. When you have something on your property, it is your responsibility to not interfere with the safety and concerns of your neighbor. Is that not right?
In
Hey.
the ideal world, you're correct.
Don't, excuse me, sir. Do I have the podium?
Yes, sir.
We have a responsibility to each other. When we fail to do that, then what do we become? New York City. We deserve the right. I've lived in this Cherokee village since 1994. Okay? And I have seen things changing, not for the better, but for the worse. I have neighbors that have complained to me. That's the reason why I'm here. Do you realize that we had a man standing in the street with a gun at 2 o'clock in the morning to stop ATVs from racing up and down in front of his house so he couldn't sleep? You realize that? Is that good for Cherokee Village? No. But the thing about the chickens, what about the bird flu? Someone said, well, chickens, the bird flu. This lady right here can attest to that. So I asked the city council to look at the pros and cons whenever an issue is presented to you to see whether or not it should be done. And secondly, how's it going to be enforced? Can we enforce the chicken law? No, you can't. It's not possible. We don't have the resources. People say they don't have 4 chickens. Well, next thing you know, there's 10, 12, 14, whatever. And what about the neighbor? Is it his responsibility to keep the chickens in the other guy's yard? Someone said, well, alpha-gal, the tick bites. I've had it for 18 years. I've had alpha-gal since 2004. So don't tell me about that. Someone said, well, if the chicken's in a coop, they won't be a problem. Well, if they're in the coop, are they going to be eating the chicks and the titters? No, they can't. They're on the ground. Coop's up above the ground. So I don't validate myself, and I'm only me, on some of the issues for chickens because they're not correct. They're not correct. And I would be willing to help financially support an area somewhere in Cherokee Village where we could do that where it wouldn't affect the neighborhoods. We live in a retirement community whether we like it or not. I realize it's changing, but I also realize the retirees are here for what reason? Love this area because it's nice and quiet and peaceful, and there are a lot of good people. So I ask again, City Council, to look at the pros and cons, and then ask yourselves, how do we pay for it under these tight restraints as far as physical responsibilities? We don't have the resources. People say, well, we'll do it. We got a problem with the lakes because people won't adhere to the rules of the lakes. Everybody says, well, we'll do it right, we'll do it. Well, how many folks do you see driving by every day when you're in your vehicle on a cell phone driving a car taking a corner? Now, they won't ever admit that they didn't follow the law. So anyway, that's all I had to say. I thank you for your time, and I thank you for your patience. In any way that I can be an assist, glad to.
Thank you, Mr. Merrill.
Thank you.
Next item are comments on city-related business, and we have 3 individuals two, Mr. Brown has already spoken. I've signed up Mr. Schlake, your first signature, so your podium is yours.
My name is Kurt Schleich. I live at 33 Chinook Lane. Tonight I'd like to share with you a message that my wife received from another citizen of our community. I quote, "My name is Kimberly Strano, and I have lived in Cherokee Village since August 8, 2010. I wish I could be here in person to tell my story, but unfortunately I'm beginning my third battle of cancer, this time being throat cancer. Prior to living in Arkansas, my family and I lived in Florida. While living in Florida, I had to undergo a stem cell transplant for my relapse of leukemia. After that transplant, I had difficulties eating eggs bought from the store. When I talked to my transplant doctor about my issues, he suggested I get some chickens and try their eggs. We did just that. When I ate our eggs from our chickens, I had no issues, but when I ate the store-bought eggs, I reacted as if I had the flu with symptoms of body aches, nausea, bad headaches that would turn into migraines. I was miserable. When I went back to my transplant doctor and asked him why I had different reactions to our chicken's eggs opposed to store-bought eggs, he said he had seen this before with many transplant recipients. It has to do with the antibiotics and whatever else commercial chicken producers give the chickens that were causing these reactions I was having. We stopped buying and eating store-bought eggs until we moved to Arkansas. My husband gave me a choice. I could have chickens, but not close neighbors, or I could have neighbors, but couldn't have the chickens. I chose having neighbors, and I gave up my chickens because I can't drive, and I have other medical issues and need access to people in case of an emergency. If I could have my hens back and have eggs to eat that would not make me sick, it would open my world when it comes to food I am able to eat without fear of, is this going to make me sick? The only way for me to eat eggs without getting sick is to find someone who has real farm eggs and buy them, spending sometimes $3 or more for a dozen. That is a hardship on me. Thank you for your time and consideration on this matter. And in closing, once again, I would like to say there is a need now in our community to have chickens, to help with the health, safety, and welfare of the citizens of Cherokee Village. Please help us. Thank you.
Thank you. Next individual, Deborah Dean.
Good evening. I'm a Cherokee Village homeowner, and I'm advocating that the city amend ordinance number 1994-4 to allow Cherokee Village residents to raise chickens on their property, limited to no more than 5 per residence and without a rooster. The chicken, or the Gallus domesticus as it's called, is a domesticated red wild jungle fowl species from the pheasant family, kept for its meat or eggs. I understand that Alderman wanted to know that. Although the state and county lack statistics on the numbers of alpha-gal cases in Cherokee Village, most of us anecdotally know someone who suffers from the syndrome. Dr. Laura Ronfelt, the public health veterinarian for the state of Arkansas, is working on a case definition for alpha-gal with the CDC and the Arkansas legislatures to make it mandatory for physicians to report alpha-gal. Once this happens, we will have hard statistics on case numbers within our community. A recent state study found that U.S. cases are most heavily distributed in Arkansas, Missouri, Oklahoma, Kentucky, and Virginia across the U.S. That's the biggest concentration. And there are Lone Star ticks all over Arkansas. The sensitivity to the tick is cumulative, and each subsequent bite presents a greater risk of a life-threatening reaction, perhaps even 20-fold, according to the study. And people aged 70 and older are more susceptible. Dr. Ron Felt, the public health veterinarian for the state, believes raising chickens on one's property with proper precautions can be an effective means of controlling the Lone Star tick in conjunction with an overall comprehensive approach, including keeping grass cut short, deer fencing, using pesticides, wearing light clothing, etc. She admits that having such a small number of chickens on a lakefront property, for example, poses no threat to the lake environment. Dr. Dustin Clark, the University of Arkansas Fulton County Extension poultry health veterinarian, says the ticks are increasing, and he also believes raising chickens in a residential setting can be an effective means of Lone Star tick control as part of a comprehensive approach as well. Dr. Patrick Fisk, the Director of Livestock and Poultry for the state of Arkansas, acknowledges this as well. Finally, amending the ordinance would also provide residents with a means of producing their own eggs, as has been said. Egg prices are up about 14.3% over last year. Especially seniors here on fixed incomes and preppers who come here want the chance to be able to raise chickens. More importantly, the United Nations and other agencies predict a major food shortage this fall. So allowing the residents to raise chickens would serve the dual purpose of potential Lone Star tick reduction while supplying high-quality emergency food. And one other thing. The
Mr.
city
Mayor, I'm
code-
sorry, we've gone over.
You have 3 minutes limit.
Okay, can I just make one last sentence?
Okay, Ed.
Okay. The city of Jonesboro, in their city code, section 1010, allows for up to 5 chickens per residence for the city of Jonesboro. So if they can do it, why can't we?
Thank you.
I believe my name's on that list also. The 3-minute talk?
Oh, but since you want to talk again?
Yes.
Okay. Mr. Brown, you can, I
prepared.
thought you inadvertently put your name on there and you're already on the agenda.
No.
Okay.
No.
You have 3-minute time limit here.
Okay, thank you. Again, as I said before, I'd be willing to help financially establish a place somewhere in the village where we could have egg-producing chickens, okay? Now, you have a person that has an ailment that store-bought eggs are a problem. Well, there are many places to buy non-store-bought eggs from here, and I'm glad to help with that. But if you think that this is all about alpha-gal, you're wrong. Chickens are not going to stop the ticks. They're not going to do it. Now, you can ask for sympathies and so on and so on, but the reality is we're creating a bad situation in the village already. And here we go again. ATVs haven't worked out. Boats on the lake haven't worked out. Are chickens going to work out right? I don't think so. Neighbors are going to be fighting neighbors. The police will be called day and night. We don't have the funds to support that stuff. I don't know how else to say it, but yes, I love this place. I love my neighbors. I'll do anything for them. But don't let my neighbors have chickens in my yard because they're in their yard. I don't want that. That's not why I live in Cherokee Village. Besides that, the governances of SID, you can't have animals. We've got a dog and cat show out here on 289, and I'm a dog and cat lover. But we play heck trying to keep that place going because people don't take care of the pets. Are they going to take care of the chickens? No. It's not going to happen. Thank you.
No other comments? Entertain a motion to
I so
adjourn.
move we adjourn.
Ever second? Mr. Heffley, okay, motion by Mr. Martin, second by Mr. Heffley to adjourn. All in favor? Aye. So be it.